This is a solar garden light that I got from a place called TK Maxx in the UK. TK Maxx, otherwise known as TJ Maxx in other parts of the world. And what caught my attention was that I'm not so keen on the base. This is supposed to be a rattan style base. Or rattan, goodness knows. Looking up the internet about rattan, it says that it's a species of 600 different types of old world climbing plants. And this particular one appears to be made of plastic. But that's not the bit I'm interested in. I'm interested in this because in the shop I pulled the cover off and it revealed it's quite a large solar panel and 4 LEDs. And I have to say, it does illuminate very well. At night time, it is quite a good level of light. Do you want to see this lit? Hold on, I can show you this lit right now. I can turn it on, I can turn the exposure control off, and then I can turn this off and you'll see that's not bad. Hold on, I'll turn off this light. There we go. And you can see, well, it's pretty good, but it is that cold white light. And that's not so good. So I'm going to turn the light on. There's going to be a sudden blast of light. Oh yes, swamped with light. And I'll just lock the exposure off so it doesn't yo-yo up and down. So what I was thinking of doing, rather predictably, is opening this and checking it out inside to see how easy it would be to change these LEDs for warm white ones. These little rubber feet in the water, I put them on later on because I was just standing this in the windowsill on its own without that sort of strange wickery rattan type sort of thing. What is it? Is it rattan or is it rattan? I'm not really sure. I don't have much furniture on that style. So the bottom comes off, revealing quite a chunky battery at 600 milliamp hour. That's pretty good. That is very good. The circuit board is unfortunately heat staked on, but that's okay, it's no great problem because once you've turned these things on, you rarely turn them off. Shall we just smash that off right now? Let's smash it off right now. There we go, it is smashed off. You may notice as I speak, every time I speak there's a slight buzzing noise, and when I stop speaking, the buzzing stops. That's because this phone uses what they call a noise gate. A noise gate is used in the audio industry to cut out background noise like hiss. Basically speaking, below a certain amplitude of sound level, it will go into silence and it will gate that off. So that's what this phone does, and it sounds actually okay, except the transformer in the soldier iron, which I've got on next to me, every time I speak you can hear the hum, but when I stop speaking, as with any other background noise, you'll suddenly hear silence. It's quite an interesting effect. It works quite well. I'm not sure it's a great effect. So the circuit board in this is the type you'd find in a normal solar light. It's got that one universal little chip. I'm going to use my magnifying glass here to read this. It's a very classic YX618. YX618. And that is a 4-pin chip that does everything. All it needs is an inductor. And it deals with the charging of the batteries. The nickel metal hydride cell in this, you can just keep trickle charging it. And if you do that, it's got an expiry date. 08/2018. Really? Have you come across that before? An expiry date in a battery like that? It's expired. Oh no. Not that it's going to bother me too much. But this thing controls the charging of that by just, the current is limited. I'll just keep ripping stuff out here. I'm going to use the snips to start clawing at this and ripping off the plastic. I was saying I was going to use the snips. I can't see the snips now. I was using them a moment ago. That's a bit disturbing. What have I done with them? If I take them through... Right, tell you what, I shall use another pair of snips. Okay, this seems a rather posh pair of snips. This is one someone gave me as a gift. I'm not going to use these because I'm going to be clawing and ripping at things, nor am I going to be using my posh Xuron snips that I keep only for specific soldering tasks. That is annoying. One moment, I'm just going to see if I can find those. And resume. This is a different pair of snips. I'm not sure where I've placed the other ones, but this is why I recommend when you get some of these cheapo snips off eBay that you buy several sets, because A, you'll destroy up here at some point. Let's just start cutting wires here. And B, you will potentially, you'll lose them, you'll leave them lying place, things like that. It's useful to have multiple sets, particularly once you've destroyed one set, you can then kind of you can use it as your sort of destruction set. So I'm just going to cut the wires here in this. because I'm wanting all the LEDs out. They're all hot melt glued in, which is slightly annoying. They really are hot melt glued in. Oh, there's a solar panel. Have I just cut one of the solar panel wires? Yes, I have. Oh, that was foolish. Not to worry, because it's also gooped under the hot melt glue, right? Oh, that's fine. It's what's happened. And I'm going to try and get the hot melt glue off these leads. Oh, that's not so bad. Oh, there's two little holes down there for the LED. The other thing I could have done, I could have pulled the LEDs up and just cut the leads where they go through, but I'll keep these. No, I won't. Screw them. They're warm. They're cold white. They're horrible. What I was saying there about the nickel metal hydride cell, the nickel metal hydride, by default, you can trickle charge it continuously at low level and it won't harm it. I mean, it does. If you trickle charge it continuously all the time, it does impact on the life because it's engaging a sort of a chemical reaction inside that, when it reaches full charge, the battery sort of liberates gas inside, but then it's reconverted back into the electrolyte from the gas, so the pressure doesn't build up inside. If you try charging it too fast, it would potentially build pressure up, and that risks a battery exploding. That is why when you try charging a alkaline battery, sometimes they go bang. If you put an alkaline battery in a standard nickel metal hydride charger, it can be quite a destructive experience. I've just pulled a wire right off that solar panel. That's not great, but we'll see if I can solder on a controlled manner. That will require some very delicate soldering. Okie dokie. Delicate soldering it is then. Am I capable of delicate soldering? I think I'm capable of delicate soldering. So the simplest charger in these circuits, inside that little 4-pin chip is a diode, and it basically just allows the current flow from the solar panel into the nickel metal hydride cell, but stops it sort of discharging it when it's in the dark. So that's all the LEDs out. That's everything out, actually. It's a little bit more out than I was planning. Let's see if we can gently liberate. Yeah, I'm going to have to be careful soldering onto these terminals. And let's take a look at what we've got here. We have a huge mess. Okay. So that's a solar panel wire. Usually they're marked on the circuit board. S for the solar panel, S plus and minus, which they are. And the battery, B plus and minus. Rightio, that's fine. Those positive wires are all common together anyway, and all the LEDs are just coming from two connections in this, which we shall replace. So first thing I'm going to do, just as a precaution, is I'm going to solder a couple of wires on for the solar panel. I think I was going to use red and black for that. I might use some different colours just to differentiate them. So I might use blue and orange for the solar panel wires. What do I use for those for the LEDs? Yeah, I'll use them for the LEDs. I'll use red and black for the solar panel because it does seem to make more sense. This wire, incidentally, is equipment wire. That's its name. I buy this from a company called Rapid Electronics in the UK, as you can see, Rapid. I made some notes because I know people will ask. It's 7 strands because it's stranded of 0.2mm cross-sectional area conductor. And the two most common colours, as long as you know the colour, the ordering code of one if you're in the UK, you can order all the others because it offers to list all the similar products. The colour code, the ordering code for the black is 01-0400 and the ordering code for the red is 010435. And if you were to get two types of wire for general experimentation, I'd say these two rolls are the ones you get. They're incredibly useful and very nice to work with. So I'm going to strip the ends of these. The module is just going to be floating around in here now. I don't actually need this to be as long, but I will leave it relatively long just so I can have a bit of leeway to play with inside, because it doesn't matter, I can tuck the wiring out the way. So I'll strip the other ends now. The reason I'm stripping the other ends now is because if I wait until I've soldered it to the solar panel, there's a risk that when you're stripping it, the sudden yank of you pulling it will actually damage the solar panel contact, because they are very, very delicate. This could kill this project. This video might suddenly end up not happening if I ruin that solar panel. Let's see if I can not ruin the solar panel. So some fresh solder, lead-based solder, which coincidentally is also from Rapid Electronics. I use two main suppliers for my stuff, Rapid and CPC, which is part of the Element 14 group, I think. Hard to say. I'm not sure who owns who these days. I think Rapid Electronics were bought out by a German company. Not sure. It's all that happens these days. A company that's been established for a while just seems to get bought out and merged into other companies. I shall angle these wires this way, and I shall just heat that very quickly so that I don't risk damaging the solar panel. I just moved that too soon. Hopefully that's not ripped off the connection from the solar panel. That would be very annoying. Horrible feeling. It's all going horribly wrong already, but I might be wrong. The solder, which I've just put down, is over there. And I'll float that one on as well. Just a quick dab onto the solar panel. Any longer and it causes problems. I've got a horrible feeling that the connection onto this one is not going to be a good result. I'm going to try and flow a bit more solder onto that now. And then I'm going to test the solar panel. If the solar panel isn't any good, then this video suddenly ends. Right, let's get a meter in. Let's get my meter with the crocodile clips on it, my little dinky one. That also, it's a very lazy meter because you don't need to change the terminals over to the amp range. So I'm going to hook this on here, and if I point this up at the light, it should show voltage. Yes, that's pretty good. And if I turn it around to the 200 milliamp setting, it should show. Yeah, that's pretty good actually. That is working fine. That's very good. Good result. I kind of want to put glue into that hole now, just to actually make sure that wire doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to actually go and get the hot melt glue gun now. So I'll just pause while I do that. I have found the hot melt glue gun. It's a Ryobi cordless hot melt glue gun. It's very good. I bought this because I was watching an Ave video when he had a rant about it. He rants about everything. And then at the end of the video, he tried to show how crappy it was by just seeing how long it would last on the battery for the amount of glue. And I was so impressed at the results that I immediately bought one. So there you go. It just shows that even when someone does a sort of shitty review about something, it's kind of it has knock-on effects. It's been very good. It's very handy having a cordless glue gun. So let's get this out now. Let's desolder all the connections we don't want out of here, and we'll put new wires in. I should leave the hot melt glue gun on here because I could use it to tack the circuit board in place inside once I'm finished, or I could just leave everything kind of loose inside. Doesn't really matter that much. Maybe I'll put the gun out of the way. I shall remove the switch off the circuit board because I don't really need it anymore. I'll just bridge it out. So I shall heat all the connections at once by going backwards and forwards, drop the switch out, and then bridge that across. I'm going to add some juicy lead-based solder to this. Ryobi seems to get a bad press. People seem to slate it because it's a fairly low budgety type tool, and certainly if I was working with tools all the time, I wouldn't necessarily trust Ryobi for continuous heavy-duty use at work. But for workshop use, it's great because you get that huge multitude of tools just with one standard battery system. It's very handy. I notice Colin Furs uses Ryobi, as do many of the other technical YouTubers. It's just a very convenient system with that universal battery. The slight niggle I've got about it is that because the battery is their earlier sort of system, they could have evolved, as it's got the tools get more and more powerful, they could have evolved the battery contacts up a bit, but they can't because they're sort of stuck with a standard. This is another opportunity to test a tool. Do I have something up here that I can use to hold this in place? I may get the vise of knowledge up and just grip this gently, because I quite fancy trying a new desoldering tool. It's a humble desoldering pump, but it's a good quality one. Let's see how well it performs. So the pump in question is an engineer brand, Japanese brand, soda sucker, and it's machined out of aluminium. It's quite nice. But the interesting thing is it's got this little silicone tip, which they provide a section of silicone tubing, which is here, to replace it with sections, which is standard. I think it's 4mm. Silicone tubing, is it? Not sure. I think it's 4mm outside diameter silicone tubing and 2mm inside, which means that even if you didn't have their official replacement material, you could just use standard silicone tubing. It's quite a common material used in the automotive industry, amongst others. I am going to turn this solder iron off. I'm going to put it out the way here, make sure it's not going to drip glue anywhere. Did I call that a solder iron or something? That was the hot melt glue I was talking about there, the hot melt glue gun. So I'm going to flow some fresh solder onto here. I could use desoldering wick for this, but I want to try this pump out. The idea behind a desoldering pump is you press the plunger down, you push the button, it draws a sudden vacuum and sucks the solder up. Let's see how that does. I wonder if angling the silicone, oh, that's quite good, would have an effect. Cutting a slight chamfer at the end. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. It's odd, you'd think it's such a simple thing, and yet some of the desoldering pumps, for all their sucking and like popping noises, they do nothing. The silicone tip, I think I'd take a bit of getting used to that. I think I would want to cut at a slight angle, but that's just maybe me. I suppose ultimately you got all that extra material, so you could. It's doing a great job though. Right, okay, it's done a great job. Let's put the other LEDs in. So I'll get rid of that switch. Very much doubt I'm going to need that. Put the vise of knowledge back down. And to determine the polarity, I don't need that label anymore because there is no on-off switch. Let's whip that out. I'm going to use the switch hole as the common positive marker. So all the positive leads will go up towards that hole. And I noticed that the moulding here is tapered so the LEDs go in perfectly. And then you can just kick them at a slight angle. That works quite well. And it holds them in place well enough that I'm not really bothered about hot melt gluing them in place. Whether I can reach down to solder easily is debatable. Where's my screwdriver to poke that lead? I'm just going to mush those leads over. And the next LED, the positive up towards that end. And then I'm going to comment all the LEDs together. All the positives will be shunted together and all the negatives will be shunted together with bits of wire. Strangely time consuming. Always is doing these little custom projects. Okie dokie. Should I zoom down this a wee bit? I suppose I should really. I will zoom down just a little bit, but not too much, because you know what I'm like. I quite often go out of range with the shot, so to speak. I tend to move the thing out of the focus area. Let's get this bit of wire out the way. And let's, now a way I could do this, I could partially strip this. No, it's not going to work. Sometimes it would be nice if you could just strip a section and then another section, and it doesn't always work. I shall give it a go. It might not work. So I'll start by stripping a good section at this end here. And then I'll try stripping it here, but sometimes it just snaps the strands. It's not doing too badly. And I shall slide that down like a sleeve. That's kind of worked quite well, actually. And then this will be jumping across to about there, so I'll strip it here. I'll leave plenty because it just makes it easier when you do that. So I'm going to slide this up. I probably did go off frame exactly as I was describing there. That's the peril of doing these things. And then I shall cut it about here and strip that end. Okie dokie. So that's just one continuous run. Actually, I've just done something silly. I should have actually left the jumper that goes to the LED, the circuit board, the driver circuit board, but I didn't. Not to worry. So now I shall tin this, and I shall flow some solder onto the LED leads as well. I shall tin this up here, and I shall crop off the bit that I'm not going to use there because that's a wee bit too much. So I shall flow solder onto all the LED pads, just onto the top of them, which wet them with solder. It makes it mate so much better when you're soldering them. Try not to melt the adjacent wire, which is something that can happen. And then this is really duking down into a sort of concealed area. But I've got it done. Okay, so now I shall tin all along this wire. Ooh, I was trying to leave a blob in the wire there. It just sometimes makes things easier if there's a little bit of extra solder, but it dropped off. That's what happens. Let's just try and add a little blob on again. That'll do. Okey-dokey. Perfect. Right, let's start soldering these LEDs then. I'm going to start at this one, and I'm going to solder that. Flow that on like that. And then I'm going to flow this one onto here by heating both the pad, the lead should I say, and the cable, and then flowing them together. I've got an option I could come right round the outside here, but I'm not going to do that because that will block access to the other wire. So I'll bring this round here and I shall solder it onto this connection, that slightly overstripped wire. And then I shall solder onto here. And that's all the positives are now connected. With the slight downside that I now have to re-tap onto that connection to get the connection that's going over to the circuit board. Not too worried about this excess of wire, it can get tucked out the way. It's better that, you know, it gives clear access to other connections. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is the blue wire for the negatives. I just chose the orange and blue because, well, positive and negative, that's not quite the right colours, but it's good enough. The blue is the closest to the black and the orange is the closest to the red. And I shall just be a bit more careful this time. Me being careful, lol. And I shall strip here, and I shall strip here. And I might actually try and leave the wire on that I need for the to go over to the circuit board. So now, am I going to be able to? Yeah, once I flow some solder onto these, the plastic should maybe just move away a tiny little bit. That's this isn't the easiest way of doing it. It might seem a great way of doing it, but it's not in reality. It sometimes makes things a bit harder than just stripping standard bits of wire and then twisting them together. But this will do at the moment. This will do for this. Right, solder. Solder this connection. When I heat this up, the plastic may actually just curl away a wee bit. Yes, it has. That's not too bad. So though it didn't really, the sleeve didn't move back too far, it's perfect. It's going to be fine. And I won't tin the other end because it's going to the circuit board. Okie dokie. I shall start in the same place did the last one. So I'll just flow those together. Give the solder iron a bit of a shake to get the solder off. This is one of the trickiest because it's right down inside. Give it a wee bit extra time. No, I completely missed. Oh well. Let's try that again. Soldering in confined areas is always just a bit peril-ridden. Perilsome. That's what the word I was looking for, as opposed to peril-ridden. And this one will now go over to here. This one could actually come round the outside like this. And I shall just duck down in here and flow that solder onto the lead. Let it cool before I pull it off impatiently and it immediately flies off again. And then the last connection onto here, and then we can put these onto the circuit board. Not the best lighting when I tilt it up like that, but you probably saw what I was doing. Right, and that's just a huge mess of wires that we have to make sense out of now. That'll be why it was kind of messy before. It must have been quite a labour-intensive light to make originally. Let's mush these leads down to keep the wire out the way and also to lock the LEDs in place now that they're soldered. Excellent. It's looking good. And I'll just put a wee loop in that wire and just stuff it down using brute force and ignorance, which is usually the best way to do things. Right, so I need a short orange wire now, just to link from that LED up to the circuit board. And I may actually solder it into the circuit board first. Or maybe I won't. I'm not really sure. I'm just making this up as I go along. As one does. Let's solder it onto the circuit board, yeah. The circuit board, being a standard one for solar garden lights, has a sort of image of the LED on top, and it's got the flat side next to the positive, and the rounded side is the flat side is next to the negative, and the rounded side is the positive. The one that's usually connected to the inductor, which it is. The inductor they've chosen in here is a 56 microhenry inductor, which is, yeah, it's not a bad choice. If they'd gone to 100 microhenry, the higher the inductance, the lower the current effectively through the circuit. And you can go, there's a limit, but you can actually go to quite high currents from these modules, but there is a point it comes unstable, and it also runs the battery flat fast. If you increase the value of the inductor, say you had one with a 22 microhenry inductor, you could change it to 47 or 100 microhenry, and it would make the solar light last a lot longer at night time. So I'm going to put the negative LED lead into the circuit board now. That's one of the main differences between the solar lights in dark countries and bright countries. In a place like Australia, they might deliberately run the LEDs a bit higher current because they know there's going to be lots of sunshine during the day. But in a place like Scotland, if the solar light's been designed for the Scottish climate, you'll find that it tends to run the LED at quite a low current because we don't get much sunshine. Oh no, here in Isle of Man it tends to be quite gloomy. We have a little peak of sunshine in the middle of the year. It was unusually sunny this year. It was impressive. We had one of the best TTs, which is a road race over here. One of the best in history. I think it's set a lot of new records. And without killing too many people, which is nice because it's got a bit of a track record for that. Every year people die in this race because it's so dangerous. If you want to know what I mean, just search for Manx TT on YouTube. There's plenty of videos of people having terrible accidents and the races. But, of course, emphasis, as is human nature, on people having terrible accidents. So now I'm going to connect the negative, twist these wires together so that they go through the circuit board easy, and make sure I don't go completely off shot. And I'm going to put the solar panel negative in here and solder it. Like this. Make a complete dog's dinner of that solder joint. Crop it off to hide my mess. Yeah, that wasn't the prettiest, but do I care? Not really. Is it going to do the job? Yes, it is. And the positive solar connection is going to a common positive connection up here. Okie dokie. So I shall solder that, and then as long as I put the battery connectors back into the holder, if they're going to reach their holder, okay, and I put the battery back in, that should be it done. That should be now a little module that will now be warm white instead of cold white and not have a switch. This could do with being bent just a little bit. This is what I mean about the snips and not abusing them as I've just done here. That's kind of okay. And the positive, that's not okay. It's just popped straight back out. These are not going in too tightly. They've got the little friction things at the side, but they're not very frictiony. Once the battery's in place, it'll hold them. I won't faff around too much. So where is the battery? There it is. Let's pop it in and see what happens. Fold these contacts down. As soon as I cover the solar panel, there's too much light here. Oh, right, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to have to demonstrate it. I'll put the cover over it, and I'll do exactly what I did earlier. So I'll place this here, I'll zoom out, I shall take the exposure off, I shall turn this light off. Ah, that's nicer. That's a much softer glow. It's making it look really bright. It's not quite as bright as that, but it's still pretty good. And once my eyes have adjusted to the lights, they'll probably see it sort of similar brightness. Okay, light going back on. And that is more or less it. All I have to do now is stick the base back on this. I'm going to stuff this circuit board in here. The hot melt glue gun is off, so I won't hot melt glue it. I'm just going to stuff it in there and put the cover on hastily, noting that the cover has a little dimple for the battery here, and that should more or less be it. Screws in, and other screw, and the job is a good one. It's done. So that's it. That's it converted to be a warm white solar light from the cold white. Now, a little bit more complex than I was expecting. It took a bit more time than I was expecting. That was quite footery for the wiring. But it's a good result. The job has worked.